be talking about building and maintaining a strong referral network. And so I know everybody talks about this, but it comes down to anything else with real estate. You know, it's about the execution. And so really want to take this from an angle of what are the things that you can put into your current processes that help you manage referrals, get more referrals, really make you look like you're on top of your game. Mark, do you want to introduce?
For those that don't know me, my name is Mark Stepp. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here at Realvolve, and just spent the last 30 plus years helping real estate agents know the why, know the reasons why they're using certain technology and how to use that technology to make a more sustainable business.
And my name is Kendra Rouse. I work in our premium service and customer support department, and really work one-on-one with you guys and make sure that your accounts are set up for success, that you're optimized for process, and you have repeatable, sustainable, automated when possible solutions for your business so that you can really scale and you know, make the grind a little easier. So today we're going to be talking about inbound and outbound referral best practices. I'm going to give you a copy of our referral workflow, and I'm also going to tell you how to integrate best practices into your current contract to close and listing processes so that that you're handling those referrals as best as you can. These office hours are every Wednesday at 11 o'clock Eastern. You can go to realvolve.com/office hours and have access to the dozens of ones that we have done in the past. So many hours there of best practices and how to use Realvolve and things like that. Things that we've talked about in the past are the power of video marketing and lead generation strategies. All right, so let's jump into it. And where I would start with this is you really want to think about how do you handle referrals? And really you can break down referrals into two types, inbound and outbound. You either received a referral and you need to manage that received referral, or you sent a referral out and hopefully you didn't just send it into la la land and you never collect your check. And so where do we start? And so where I would start with this is best practices in your contract to close. Everybody has contract to close processes. Even if you're not running them in a workflow right now, you have contract to close processes. You have to if you've done any business at all. But what that looks like, hopefully you are running your contract to close through workflows. And how we in the Navigator department break down contract to close is two ways. Sometimes people have more, but at a bare minimum, we have buyer contract to close and seller contract to close. We always think about triggers when we have workflows, okay? So in Realvolve, if you get something under contract, you go in, you create a transaction, you start a workflow. If I represent the buyer, I start buyer contract to close. If I represent the seller, I start seller contract to close. If I'm doing a lot of dual-ended deals, I'm going to create a workflow called buyer and seller contract to close so that it is customized in a way where it handles both sides of the transaction. So let's take a look at where the referral fits into this. The first thing that we've done is we've created a group for referral, okay? Now, if you're not familiar with groups, and this took me a little bit to wrap my head around how group works, but really you want to think about a group as sometimes things apply to a transaction and sometimes things don't. Do I have a referral every single time? No, I don't. So do I want to see activities telling me to respond or deal with referrals when I don't have a referral? I don't. And so what the group does is it allows you, when you start your workflow, to deselect referral and say no, uncheck. And you're basically telling the system, don't show me any activities that have to do with referral because it's not applicable in this instance. And so as you can see, the majority of these groups are things that are not consistent. I don't have a well inspection on everyone. I don't have radon. I don't have an HOA. I don't always do a home warranty. So this helps deal with the things that I don't always do, but when I do them, I need to pay attention to them in a certain way. So let's start there. I clicked add group and I added referral as a group because I need to deal with this when it applies. So the next thing that I've done is I've created a few tasks. I don't know why it's not in this one. Sorry, guys, give me just a second. It's not showing in here.
In that list, a lot of times, if you know what you're looking for, you can just do a Control F and do a search for, you know, whatever text and stuff. If the activity's not there at all, then can't really find that either.
Yeah, and I'm just going into a different account where it is. These are demo accounts, so sometimes they get adjusted. So weird. Okay. Let me share my screen again. I apologize for that hiccup. I'll just build it and show you exactly what you would do if you didn't have it. The goal here is to think about, and specifically, if you're dealing with a referral on the, I'm in buyer contract to close. If you are dealing with a referral when you are now under contract with a buyer, it is probably because somebody referred that buyer to you. And so best practice, I would probably want to tell the person that referred me that business, you know, hey, the person that you referred is now under contract. And so inside my buyer contract to close process, I'm going to create an activity that says update refer to let them know we're under contract or whatever. You can call it whatever. Okay. The goal of this is to, I want to tell that person, hey, we're under contract. So the next thing I do after I title my activity is I need to decide who's going to do it. I'm going to let my transaction coordinator handle this. So the assigned to could go to the buyer's agent, but I'm going to let the transaction coordinator do it. So I select buyer transaction coordinator. My with is who I'm communicating with. In this case, I need to tell the person that referred me the business. So I need to come down to party members and I'm going to find buyer referred by. Okay. So I'm going to have the buyer's transaction coordinator send an email to the person that referred the buyer. The next thing I need to do is create the email. And so I'm going to come down here to action. And I'm going to say send refer update email. I don't have an email yet, so I'm going to need to come into my templates. I'm going to create a new template. I'm going to call it update refer buyer under contract. You can call this whatever you want. Now, inside of our workflows, when we build them out, you see that there's an acronym over here, 1RVB2, okay? What this means is this is Realvolve's set of workflows that they've made. B is buyer, okay? So B1, 1RVB1 is active buyer. 1RVB2 is buyer contract to close. So it is a way to organize your suite of workflows. If you go through the Navigator program, we provide all of this for you, but you're really just thinking about some kind of logic. And the reason we use these acronyms is because when we make the templates, we use these acronyms here so that we can find a list of the workflows that are associated, in this case, with buyer contract to close. I can then come in here in the top right-hand corner, type in 1RVB2, and I can get an entire list of templates that are related to my specific workflow. So that's the thought process behind that acronym. Now, the use with, I have to decide all of Realvolve is broken down into its workflows. Is this related to a contact, a property, or transaction? In this case, we're talking about contract to close. And so it's going to be a transaction. And so I'm going to update the person that referred me the business. And I can use information from the transaction. And in this case, I would want to reference the buyer because I know the person that referred the business is I know who the referrer is, I know who the buyer is, and the referrer would know who the buyer is because they referred that person. So in this case, I'm going to say buyer first name is now under contract. Right?
I want to make one quick point. Going back to that use with, and for those that are brand new, Realvolve is got three main databases: the contact, the property, and the transaction. And workflows are geared towards either contact, property, or transaction. The reason why we're picking it here, not only is it dealing with the workflow, but it also helps determine which fields are displayed and which ones are required whenever we're doing this process. And if we're doing a property type of email, in this case, we don't want to allow users to be able to type in property fields. If it's a transaction, it needs to be a transaction thing. If it's a property thing, just making sure that the fields all relate to the database that the information is coming from. And yes, there are linked information pieces, but those links are detailed as separate fields within this. So use with transaction allows you to get access to the party members, to all the dates, all the information about that transaction. So it's real important that you use that use with.
Mm-hmm. Well, and as you can see here, I mean, and like Mark was telling you, it's pulling information from somewhere, right? So we're told hey, go look in the transaction, find the buyer, and pull their first name. So I've created a template said, hey, Bob is under contract. Thank you again for your referral. Your referral, Bob, is now under contract. We'll keep you updated with their progress. This can say whatever you want. I've opened it with greeting. I've closed it with signature. If you are not familiar with greeting, it is by default the person's first name. In this case, I am sending this email to the person that referred the business. So it would be the person that referred the business's first name. Something to keep in mind in a conversation I probably have every 2 weeks is the difference between greeting, and in this case, it would be buyer referred by, I can't spell today, first name. So buyer referred by first name. Okay, let's talk about the difference between these two, greeting and buyer referred by first name. I know this email is only going to the person that referred me the business, so I would feel very comfortable with using buyer referred by first name. I, however, am the master of using greeting because it's easy. Let the system decide what the greeting is. The thing you need to know about greeting is that greeting, again, by default is first name unless that person is married. If they are married, by default, the system will say Bob and Susie. And so you really want to think about, is it appropriate in this instance to refer to this person by Bob and Susie? Now you can go into the contact and change their greeting, but if you have not done that for this person, the system will assume that it will be their name plus their spouse's name for the greeting. So if I want to ensure that I am not saying Bob and Susie, that I'm just saying Bob or whoever referred me this business, then I'm going to use buyer referred by first name. Another thing that you want to take into consideration, or things that get overlooked, are who is this email going to? Because let's take your under contract email. You just got a new accepted contract today. You're going to send that email out to everybody that you work with on a professional level. We have that in our buyer contract to close. It's called opening email to closing parties. In there, you're like, hey, everybody, we're under contract. Here's all of your dates. Here's all your people. Here's a copy of the contract. If I send that to the attorney, I CC the lender, I CC the transaction coordinator, I CC everybody else. Then if I have put this to a specific party, the system doesn't care who it's sending it to at that point. It cares who you've addressed it to. And so knowing the difference between those, most of the time you're going to be okay using greeting, but just something to keep in mind. Little pro tip for you. All right, so I've made my email, and so I need to attach it into my action. So I come back over here to the activity that I've created. I'm going to click back into my action. I've titled it. I have to decide what I'm going to do. My options are to send it manually with or without preview, meaning do I want to take a look at the email template before I send it out, or do I just want to send it? I can send it automatically and I can send it immediately. If I send it immediately, it's going to go out as soon as this activity is created. Automatically is going to follow some rules that you've set into settings. So if you go into your settings under emails, about halfway down, there is a time drop down for your automatic emails. And so if this is set to automatic, it is going to follow those time restrictions in your settings. In this case, I'm going to send it out manually. I want to take a look at it first. I have to decide what it is. I made an email. And then I have to find my email. So here's the email I created. Update referrer buyer under contract. If I select this button here, I have said go into the contact record of whoever I'm sending this email to and update their last email date. Tell the system that I emailed them and do it for me automatically. So I'm typically going to do this. The CC option here is what I want to include anyone else on this. In this case, I don't. And I'm going to hit save. I could change my type. This is going to be an email. I could my group. I want to change my group to referral. Now, the reason for this is what I've told this group is if I select referral when I start this workflow, show me this activity. If I've deselected referral, there's no need for me to ever see this activity. Don't ever create it. And so that's what that group does. The other thing I want to decide is when am I going to send this? Okay. And so I have to think about the context. In this case, I just put this person under contract. And so I'm probably going to do it 0 days after acceptance. I could do it 0 days after start date, but what's the difference between acceptance and start date? Acceptance date is the day that I actually have a bound contract. I may not start that workflow until the next day. Hopefully it's by the next day. But start date is going to be whatever date I actually start it. And so what this is going to do, let's use that as an example. If my acceptance date's yesterday and I launch a workflow today, if I use acceptance date, it's going to create that activity due yesterday, but it's still going to be there for me as a to-do. If I do it as start date, it's actually going to show it as due today. In this situation, it's probably not critical either way, but important to think about that. I'm going to choose acceptance date, and I'm happy with everything that I've done here. Does anybody have any questions on anything that I've set up for this activity?
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about the greeting, and that is something I've come in, I've had issues with. But one of the things that I found is when I went in to change the greeting for a husband and wife, it changed them both. So if I said, Nicole and Tony, whatever one I did, it changed it for both.
So you're saying it changed it to Nicole and then it changed Tony's to just Tony?
No, it changed Tony's to Nicole.
Oh,
yeah, so that is a shared field. So if you change it in one, it changes it in both.
Okay, so there is no. Okay, so that's perfect.
Yeah,
then it's the best.
Normally you'd be a situation where if you're changing, it's typically because whether you use male dominance or female dominance or whoever the main person is that you want to communicate with as the primary. Anytime you communicate with either one of them, it's that same piece. Now, if you're just wanting to use the first name of a person and not include the spouse, and it's not just spouse, the significant other, whoever's connected as that relationship,
or whatever way. Okay.
Yeah, but it does put it in. It is a shared field between the two records to identify them as a unit.
So using the contact first name is going to be my best bet for a lot of things.
Yeah, and you always want to, I find myself doing that. When I see greeting, I say Bob and Sally. Like, is it okay to say Bob and Sally? And if it's not, then I'm going to really think about who am I sending this email to, and I'm going to change that context.
I have a question regarding
Hi, Greg.
transaction workflows. You can also trigger different, like retagging and things of that sort.
Yeah.
But you can't change tags on the contacts. Am I missing a method of doing that?
Yes, you are. Not related to referrals specifically, but let's
Just-
jump over here
even the
and
parties,
show
for
you. Okay, so one of these tags in here is adjusting the tags. Okay, so in our contract to close, we have a task that adjusts tags on the day of closing. So what's making that connection, or what Greg's asking about, this action right here. See, this is emails, text messages, things like that. Right below it, you have an action of adding or removing tags. And so in this case, these don't really make sense. Again, this is a dummy account. We would remove past client, or we would remove active, and we would add past client. What this doesn't tell the system is who you do it on. Where the system doesn't know unless we tell it where you go in and adjust those tags. And so where it's going to look for that is in the with field, because again, the with field is who am I doing this with? Who am I emailing? Who am I adjusting their tags? Who am I launching? Like who am I dealing with in this? In this case, I have said, go into buyer 1 and buyer 2 and adjust their tags. Does that make sense, Greg?
It does. Now, can you adjust the tags on both the seller and the buyer by just adding another action?
Yep, I would just add in seller.
Well, no, but we don't want to.
If they're different tags.
We use different tracking tags for buyers and sellers. So would I create an additional action for the seller side?
You would need,
create,
because they are different tags for the different people, you'd really need to create a different activity in that case. A separate action wouldn't help you because it is dealing with the same with people. Does that make sense?
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So if I were adjusting different tags, I would create 2 different activities, just like Mark said, because it's saying whatever I tell you to do in this action, go in here and do it to these people. And so if I wouldn't want to do that to a seller, I wouldn't include it in here.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So what did we do? We created an activity that updated the person that referred us the business once the person that they referred to us went under contract. The other logical place in your buyer contract to close, your seller contract to close, whatever, to update a person that referred you the business is at closing. And so typically you're going to repeat that same process. I'm not going to do it again, but just rewatch this if you're actually building out your systems and redo it at closing. So instead of 0 days after acceptance, you're going to select a schedule of 0 days after closing, 1 day after closing. And typically that email is going to say something like, hey, this person's closed now. Thank you so much for the business. You should expect your payment in however long, so whatever kind of context that you would give them to update them at that time. I think those 2 areas, both of them grouped out as referral in your buyer contract to close and your seller contract to close are needed, especially if you're processing referrals. Now, the workflow that we're going to give you today is a different approach, kind of at the same thing. And it takes a couple more things into account. It's not in this account. Sorry, guys, I had to jump out. Give me 2 seconds. Mark, do you have anything to add to that while I get back in this other account? All right, let's take a look at the workflow that you guys are going to get.
Sorry, I was muted. Go ahead.
Who is talking?
I forgot I was muted. Sorry, guys. There's lots of different updating things that you're going to want to do for a referral to keep and also determine, is this a non-agent referral versus an agent referral? And you're going to treat them differently. So you may have a different tag or a different group that you want to do based off, is this an agent referral? Because now you're also dealing with, getting that referral fee and and letting them know what that is. And there's different touch points based off of what type of referral it is. So just want to make sure that that's thought about as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And how that would handle, and typically the way that's addressed is in the contract to close. At closing, you're going to do exactly what I just talked about, except in your action, you're going to have two different actions. You're going to have one template that updates for a person that is a non-agent. It's going to say non-agent referral update. And you're going to have one template for an agent. And the context of that template is going to be exactly what Mark said. Hey, you can expect your payment, whereas you would never say something like that. You know, it's going to be more professional, addressing the actual transaction itself. You know, and that way you can just kind of pick your poison, because when that activity comes up, the way those actions read, it's going to give you two options. You're going to select the one that's appropriate in that situation and hit run, which would send one of the two emails. All right. Now, on to the good stuff. Here's the workflow that you guys are getting today if you want it. Now, what we talked about before was very transactional. What this is a contact workflow that deals with inbound or outbound referrals prior to them going under contract, okay? The reason that this is handled separately than being in your contract to close process is because of context. If I get Sally Buyer and was referred to me from Bob, ideally at the very beginning, I need to do a few things. If it is an inbound referral, I need to deal with paperwork, and I need to periodically update Bob that let him know what's going on before Sally goes under contract. This contact referral doesn't know when Sally goes under contract, and that's why those very specific, hey, you're under contract, 0 days after acceptance, 0 days after closing, those live inside of your contract to close workflow because they're related to the transaction. This workflow deals with periodic updates, managing inbound and outbound referrals. So let's go on the front end and see what this looks like, how I would use it, first of all, and then I'll show you guys probably what you want to pay attention to, or if you need to go in there and tweak it or whatever else. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do if I got a referral is I'm going to create that contact in Realvolve. And so Kendra Test is the person that was referred to me. And so I have created that contact inside of Realvolve. So what I'm going to do then is establish the relationship that somebody referred me this business. And that information lives under source details. And so I'm inside the person that was referred to me under the contact tab. And you can see here referred by Anna Smith referred Kendra Test. Great. If this is all I do, I have done nothing to ensure that one, I convert Kendra Test, or two, that I get the paperwork done that I needed to do with Anna, or that I update Anna on a periodic basis so I look like a rock star agent. None of that has happened. All I've done right here is put this person in my database, and I have said that somebody referred me this business. And so this workflow is meant to bridge that gap. So if I come into the person that was referred to me and I click start a workflow, I'm going to start this workflow called referral for inbound or outbound referrals. When I hit next, this is where groups come in. We talked about groups under our buyer contract to close. We're going to use groups in this case. The alternative is that you have two different workflows, inbound referral, outbound referral. Do what you want. If you want to separate them out, doesn't really matter. It's personal preference. I eat, sleep, and breathe workflow. So I thought about this tremendously. I want mine to live in one workflow, and I want to pick my poison when I start my workflow, and I'm going to tell the system which one this is. Probably, you know, I'm going to say, okay, well, this one is an inbound referral. So you can see when I deselected outbound referral, the tasks that have to do with an outbound referral went away. Okay. Any questions on that? On groups, how we use those?
It doesn't look like we've got any inbound referral items. Is that the case?
Okay, agent receiving referral details. Send referral prospects. This is outbound. So it's actually, this one should be inbound. All right, so I'll get that update before I send that to you guys. This should say inbound, not outbound. And we're going to go into the activities and talk about this, but let's look at the overview of activities. We're going to enter the details into Realvolve. So it's really anytime you have a checklist item in a workflow that's asking you for details, you can absolutely go into these tabs, and enter the information wherever it's supposed to live. But I am a huge fan of having a checklist as part of your workflow to ensure that whatever information that workflow needs, that workflow gets. So in the buyer contract to close world, it says, what are your dates? Who are your people? What's your acceptance date? What's your closing date? You know, things like that. So while I went into this contact tab and I found that drop down that said, hey, who referred that, whatever else, I don't have to do that as long as I create a task that asks me for the information that I need. And this will do that, and I'll show you how. So we're making sure that the information that needs to live in the CRM gets in there. We're making sure paperwork gets done. If I have sent this referral to someone else, I am going to check in with them quarterly. You can change how often that is, but the premises here is don't send, Heather agent, in the next town over a referral and just hope one day you get a check in the mail. Let's create a repeating activity that tells us once every so often, I'm going to have an email or a text or something that I can send to Heather agent and say, hey, I sent you Kinder tests. Like, how's she doing? What's going on? So on outbound referrals, that is the purpose of this. Now, this task here for inbound referrals, I'm going to send the details to the receiving agent referral. Send referral details to agent receiving referral. No, that is for outbound. I need to clean this up a little bit. Here's the difference. On inbound referrals, you need to make sure that you get the information that you need about that person, which is probably going to be in your paperwork. You also need to make sure that you make initial contact with that person and that you're giving the person that referred you the business periodic updates. Okay. So it's the flip. If you got the business, let's be proactive and give the person that gave you that business a periodic update to include, hey, we're under contract. Hey, we closed. On the flip of that, if we send the business out, we're going to give them updates. And so let's go ahead and launch this. I'll launch all of them just to show you guys. The agent here, we've said the agent's responsible for doing this. This may be your transaction coordinator. It may be your assistant. It may be whatever. I'll show you guys in the back end of this workflow where you can adjust that. And here we're going to say, okay, if I have multiple users in Realvolve, who's responsible for doing that? In this case, this is a one user account. And so this is the person responsible for doing it. This workflow only cares about the start date. And so it's going to intuitively know that that's when this starts. I'm going to hit next. Now here it says referred by and referred to. Because this workflow is set up to handle either or, it is going to say, hey, are either one of these applicable? It doesn't mean that you have to put them in, but this is where it's going to give you the opportunity to input that information rather than going into the contact tab and having to locate where that lives. If I enter this information here, it is going to take it into that contact tab and file it there and make it live there. So two ways to do the same thing. It's just we want to make sure that we get that person's information into the system because we're sending them periodic emails. And so we need to make sure that, if the system knows who to send that information to. All right. So while that's launching, let's go take a look at the back end of this workflow. As you can see, you have two groups, inbound, outbound referral. Let's take a look at this first task. It's saying enter the dates into Realvolve. Now, here's where I was talking about who is responsible for doing this. If it wasn't going to be the agent, it could be the assistant, it could be whoever you decide it to be, but you're going to make that determination. By default, this workflow is saying the agent's doing all of this work. The with is the workflow contact. It doesn't really matter because we're not actually communicating with anybody in this instance. We're just making sure this checklist gets filled out. So here are some of the things we've put in here by default. Referred to date. So you can actually track the date that you sent this contact to someone else. referred by, referred date. So who did you get the referral from? What date did you get them? The rest of these are to ensure kind of a fail safe to make sure that you have the information for that contact if you want it. Home address, home phone, home mobile, client type, property type, their preferred contact method. And then there's also a drop down so you can select their source. If this is not something I would ever track, I'm going to click on this X and I'm going to click update. I don't have to have all this information here. Also, if we're missing something, you can feel free to type in whatever you want into this checklist. The goal is if I got a referral or I sent a referral out, what information do I need in that moment? The next thing that you're going to be doing 0 days after start date right away is ensuring that you got that referral paperwork done. So we've created a checklist, upload referral agreement and tag referral agreement. If you're familiar with the way Realvolve works, you have the ability to pull in documents off of tags. And so what this is saying is come into your files tab, upload your document and give it a tag of referral agreement. And the reason for that is because this activity is set up to come in and say, hey, do you have any documents in the file tab that are tagged referral agreement? And if they do, then it is going to automatically pull them in. You don't have to go find that document. You don't have to do that. You can just automatically pull it in. And so this email is ensuring once you've done these two things, in this case, uploaded the signed referral agreement, tagged it referral agreement, you are now sending a copy of the completed referral agreement to the person that referred you the business or that the business was referred to you by. Now, the reason I put both of these in the with field is because we didn't fill both of them out, okay? So the system, when it goes to send this email to say, hey, Heather agent, here's a copy of your completed referral agreement, the system says, look in the referred to, look in the referred by and see who's there. Send it to whoever's there. In this case, I only filled in the referred by with the agent's name. And so if the system doesn't have anything in the referred to field, it just ignores it and it's only going to send it to the other one. So I'm going to get a copy of that paperwork out there. I have an outbound quarterly check-in. So again, if I have sent this referral out, then I am going to have a check-in every quarter that shows up. I've got my repeat on monthly every 3 months. It's going to repeat on the same day of the week. I'm sorry, same day of the month. It is going to end never. Maybe for you, you're only going to track down these outbound referrals for 6 occurrences. You can do whatever you want. By default, this is set up to never. So this will repeat every 3 months until you stop this workflow. Now, that's why it's on. So we have an inbound and an outbound referral update, depending on which one you're doing. Now send the referral prospect details on referral agent. If you referred your client to someone else, what this is doing is sending the person that, you know, if you have a buyer and you're like, oh, great, you're moving to the next town over. I know an amazing agent over there. This email is going to the person that you referred to that other agent saying, hey, here's all of this information about Heather agent. She's great. The next town over, she'll be in contact with you. This is you providing that information to the client that you're referring out. Now, this task is set up to compute or to populate 0 days after the completion of my referral agreement. Now, why did I do that? Because I could say 0 days after start, 3 days after start, but the goal here was to make it a step smarter and say, I'm not sending Heather agent's information to this buyer until I know that I got the paperwork done that guarantees that I get paid. So this task is not going to populate itself until I have went up here and checked off that I completed my referral agreement. Check, it's done. Now this other task is sitting here and it says, oh, the referral agreement's complete. Now it's time to send the information out to people.
It's all about process, making sure that you've got all your processes in place and making sure that one thing happens before the other thing happens, and, you know, CYA.
Mm-hmm. And this other one is sending the information to, so it was set up correctly. I didn't have to change anything. That's the difference in it, you guys. And I'm sorry that I was confusing myself. This one task is giving the information to the client you're sending out. This other task is giving the information to the agent you're sending it to. Hey, Heather agent, here's this buyer's information. Again, this task does not populate until I've verified my referral agreement's done. My with field is going to change to the referred to because I'm sending this to agent or Heather agent. And my contact is going to be, or my information is going to be a little bit different. It's going to send the information of the buyer. Now, the good thing about this is when I send this information over to Heather buyer, I love merge fields. Okay. Do you see the power in this? This workflow is ran on the buyer that you're sending to Heather agent. So when you go to send that information out, this is already written for you. Remember, workflow contact is the person that the workflow is launched on. In this case, the person that you are either receiving as a referral or sending out. In this case, I'm sending it out. So it's like, hey, referral details for Bob or for Bob buyer. Here's their details: first name, last name, their spouse's name, their email, their phone, the client type, the property type, preferred contact method. So think full circle. What was the first task that you guys did? You got a checklist that asked you, what are the important information? What is, let's make sure that's in there. So that way, when you go to populate this email, it pulls all that information in for you and you're not guessing why it pulled blanks. We have a question mark?
Nope. Doing great.
No,
I can tell you're excited about the merge fields.
Okay, so it's simple. It's five tasks. But I really think that this workflow coupled with those two tasks in your contract to close process does better than 99% of these agents out here in what they're doing. So the process is this: if you want the workflow, put your email inside the chat. We'll send it over to you. Get a, hey, we're under contract and hey, we're closed activity in your contract to close processes if they're already not there, and get in the habit of, if you are going to send a referral out or you're going to receive a referral, the steps are input the contact into the CRM, into Realvolve, launch your referral workflow. And that's as simple as that. So we got about 15 minutes left.
One of the big advantages of joining us live, and I want to make sure that this is recorded, for those that are seeing this as recorded, you don't get the workflow. You've got to be here, be live to be able to get this workflow, because that's one of the advantages there. But we do want to make sure that you guys understand. So if you got any questions, how to, whatever, definitely speak up. Now's your time.
I've got a question.
Okay.
Most of our business is referral based from our sphere, or obviously this workflow is geared towards agents, which is great. We get that too, but most of it is referral based. How would you switch that up, I guess? Or I don't know. I'm at such a loss, Kendra. You and I have to talk after this anyway about Navigator.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about that real quick. And it's all about context, right? But I actually think this works for both. And that's on this quarterly check-in, okay? So again, I received a referral from, a client that's been a repeat client, but I still want to keep them up to date. I'm still going to launch this workflow. I'm going to create a contact for the person that was referred to me. I'm going to launch this workflow, and then I'm going to send this email quarterly that gives that person an update. So this doesn't matter if it's an agent. It doesn't matter if it's a person, a past client, whatever. This outbound referral update, as long as this email is written in a context where it works for both, then it doesn't matter. Hey, I wanted to check in on Bob agent that you sent over. Oh, this is the outbound referral. Let's go over here and look at inbound referral. I think that's what you're asking about. You guys, I always lose my voice on these calls. Like, it's crazy. All right. I wanted to send you an email to give you an update on the referral you referred to us on blank date. I would have greeting on if it was an agent or a regular or a past client. I would have referred date on it either way. I would have the person's first name and I would have their last name. I would send this email to an agent or to a past client. It works for either. The purpose is if you sent me that business, I'm going to be proactive and get you an update every quarter. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think it really comes down, if you're doing referral based anything, real estate or whatever, it's about recognizing people referred and what kind of thing can you do to celebrate that referral. Not only that you got it, yeah, great, they gave me a referral, but how can you wow that person so that they give you more referrals? And it really comes down to, what is it that I want to portray as part of my business as being something special, as being something that other agents aren't doing. That could be a referral gift. Lots of people give gifts. So, is that a wow? It can be. But, if you're keeping them up to date, letting them be part of that transaction in a way that other agents don't, that's a celebration. At the end, send them, the photo of, hey, John and Mary, just here's a picture of John and Mary in their new house. All these things that you can do to help celebrate that event. I mean, it's a big event for somebody. So making sure that they recognize that, and that just gives that social proof. Number one, you can see, hey, I'm doing stuff for people, but it also encourages them to give you more. They want to be part of your success, and you giving them access to that success makes them excited, and they're going to want to give you more. I learned that from Joe Stump many years ago. I used to train with Joe Stump and be up on his stage to, show how to do this automation wise. And it's so easy, but it's a matter of thinking outside the box. What can I do to make things different than everybody else?
Yeah, I think too often in real estate, there's no shortages of webinars you can attend, of shiny objects you can run after, of things that you can think about. That's not what makes you money. I mean, I worked with hundreds, if not thousands of agents, and it typically comes down to, it's not you don't know what to do, it's you don't consistently do it. Okay. So is this out? And here's probably what I see a lot of agents struggle with. If I give you this workflow, can you make the commitment to every time you get a referral, put it in your CRM, launch the workflow, complete the activities? I've made it as simple as that for you. That's what this workflow does. Is it going to be perfect? Can you put bells and whistles on it? Yes. Do this workflow 10 times before you start nitpicking it and giving yourself and your reasons in your head while you're not going to launch it, because what if this and what if that? And I just see agents get caught up in the fantasy and the perfect world and what if I did this and what if I did that? At the end of the day, it's communication, and even if it's a simple reminder to pick up the phone and call that person, just say, hey, I didn't forget about you. Thank you for that referral. Who do you think that person's going to give that referral to next time? The person that proactively made sure that they're going to get paid. So that's what it's about. So if nothing else, just commit to those three things. Just use the workflow, have a process in place. And again, the Navigator program, that's what it does. It makes sure that you're given those tools so that we can stop thinking about, well, what do I want to do? And what about that? We give you those best practices. Then it becomes about, what are my triggers? If I go under contract, I start contract to close. If I get a new listing, I start pre-MLS. If I get a new contact, I put them in the system and I make sure they're on some kind of campaign. We give you those campaigns and we tell you which one you should be putting them on. In this case, in referrals, it's giving you a path to doing inbound or outbound. All you have to do is implement it. Anyone else have any questions or anything else? We typically open up the last 10-15 minutes or so to answer any questions about this or otherwise, while I still have a voice.
I know I ask you every time, Mark, but any update on email statistics?
The engineering team is still working on some activity things. I've been testing that. The statistics is the next thing to to dive into. So I do know that. There were some notification problems that were coming from SendGrid, which is our third-party application that deals with that, and the communication changes that they made are affecting us somehow. So once that is rectified, I know everybody is wanting that, and it's important. So
What just happened?
I'll leave you guys with one other thing, specifically on this workflow. If you download this in the account, what you need to do before you can start using it is review your templates. Again, we're going to go back to this acronym. The acronym for this workflow is 1RBREF. Realvolve's workflow referral. Take it, type it into your templates. Go to your templates at the top, type in this code, hit enter. When you do that, you're going to get a list of the activities that are here. They're all pre-written for you. They all are merge field heavy. Again, the workflow is written in a way where it ensures that these merge fields should be filled out for you, but you can tweak them, you can change them, you can do whatever you want to them. Once you've done that, then you can feel free to start using that workflow, but I would definitely review any templates before you start sending things out.
and utilize the ChatGPT integration if you guys are wanting to expand your content, making sure that it is in your voice or looks different, stands out. How can I make this wording better? Those types of things can be used, can be done very easily using the GPT connectivity piece. So
Okay. So I don't know if you guys saw what I did. I highlighted what I wanted it to change. I came in and I just told it, improve this message. So it rewrote this for me. It knew the merge fields that I was already using and it reused them. Again, once you've done this integration, you can choose to add to message. So it's going to keep whatever's in there, or you can replace it. In this case, I just want to replace the whole thing. And there it is.
very easy, very quick, and hopefully, it's good grammar. That's my biggest challenge is making sure that the grammar is correct and spelling. As a dyslexic, it is quite a bit of a challenge for me to make sure that spelling is correct.
Right. Okay. Well, if we don't have any other questions, then we'll wrap it up for today. Next week, we're going to be talking about social media, best practices in Realvolve and otherwise as an agent. So we'll see you guys same time next week.
I have one question for you. Is it possible to just chat with you at some point about where I'm at and Navigator?
Yeah. If you just want to, well, I think I have your email. Let me email you right now. And do you have a few minutes now?
I do.
Okay. I'm going to email you my link because we're in Mark's meeting room. I'll email you mine. You can just hop in and we can chat.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Have a great day, everybody.